Thank you. Thank you. How'd they get the skybox seats up there? That's awesome. Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me. Man, you guys look fired up. What, are you guys ready to win an election or something? I'm excited to be here with you today on this. Thank you. We love you, too. I appreciate you guys coming out here today. I know I can hear the excitement. You should be excited. We are, I don't know, what, 28, 29 hours away, whenever the polls close and the news comes out, from saving our country from these people that are about to trying to destroy it in Washington, D.C. And it'll be because of the work so many of you have put in. And it's always great to be here and great to be back. I'm happy that my wife, Jeanette, was able to join me on the road today. Jeanette is with us. A lot of good friends here today. Actually, our former Lieutenant Governor, Carlos Lopez Cantera, traveled up with me here today. So I don't need to tell you why this election is so important. We had I think we get a reminder of it every single day. So Joe Biden, President Joe Biden, I don't know if you've heard of him. Well, he's, President Joe Biden was in I think, well, he was in Pennsylvania. I think he thought it was in Ohio, but he was in Pennsylvania. And he gave the speech, and he's talking about and then he had a heckler. Is there a heckler here today? Just, okay. You're the heckler. Thank you for coming, sir. And this heckler in the front row started screaming at him, saying something about, you're allowing oil drilling to happen, something along those lines. And he responds to the heckler. And he says, no, I'm not. I'm against oil drilling. We're going to stop all of that. After basically saying a few days ago that denying it. But here's why I'm telling you this story. So he goes after, and then the heckler says, well, what about the oil rigs out in the Gulf of Mexico that are drilling, that have been there, from before? And he says, oh, well, those were there before I was president. And we're working on that. Now, why do I tell you that story? The reason why I tell you that story is that gave you insight into what's happening today in the modern Democratic Party. Okay? The modern Democratic Party knows that the overwhelming majority of Americans, people care about the environment, people care about the climate. We care about these things, of course, but we also care about paying $4 for gas. Because that's a reality every single day for the overwhelming majority of Americans. That's just the way it is. So he knows that. They know that. But then they've got this group inside of their party of these radicals, just on one issue we're talking about right now, for example, that want us to stop drilling completely for oil. They want no oil, no fossil fuels. Everybody take a bus, ride a bike, or get in one of these electric cars that you can't charge in California because they say it'll overpower their grid. Okay? So they have to make that group happy. And so what they do is they basically, at the end of the day, what they basically have to do at the end of the day is they have to take policy positions that are against you, that make you pay $4 for gas in order to make that small but loud and powerful minority within their party happy. And that's not the only issue that happens. It's not just the climate issue. It happens with crime. There's this small group of people, nutty people, who believe that we shouldn't put people in jail. Everyone deserves 140 chances of violating the law before we finally do something about it. They do. People that don't believe that there should, bail, there shouldn't, everybody should be bailed out. I don't care what you did. That believe that police officers maybe shouldn't be arresting people for crimes. That certain crimes shouldn't be prosecuted. There are people that believe that they care more about people that have committed crimes than they do about law-abiding people. There are people like that out there. Now, it used to be that they all just taught at universities. Now these people are like in the bureaucracy and they control important agencies and they have loud voices. They even have their own TV shows. Okay? These people. And then you've got Americans of all walks of life that are terrified of violent crime. Hillary Clinton was on, you remember her? Hillary Clinton. She was on television the other day. She said that crime is something Republicans talk about because they want to scare people. It's like, yeah, no, I don't know. Violent crime is kind of scary. Like very few people are in favor of violent crime, except violent criminals, obviously. And so they, again, on another issue in which the overwhelming majority of people care about violent crime, but they can't really be tough. Of course, they're going to say they're against it, but they can't really do what needs to be done of violent crime. Okay? They can't support police. They have to support prosecutors that refuse to prosecute crimes. They have to be for letting people out of jail and giving them 18 chances. They have to be for all that to make that small group happy at your expense. The same is true with the border. When you talk about the border and 6,000 people, guys, no one has to lecture me about immigration. Listen, obviously here in Central Florida, we have a lot of people that come from other countries. And obviously in South Florida, you literally can't go anywhere without meeting somebody that came from another country. My parents were immigrants. My wife's parents are immigrants. All of my neighbors are immigrants or first generation. So I didn't learn about immigration in some documentary on Netflix, okay? I learned about it growing up because I've been surrounded by it. I think immigration, legal immigration, has been a good thing for America. But what we have now is not immigration. What we have now is mass migration, 6,000 people a day, and it's not sustainable. And the overwhelming majority of Americans understand that. Even people, shocking to them, even people who come from immigrant backgrounds say, of course I'm for immigration, but I'm not for this. This is chaos. This is disorder. And so you have the overwhelming majority of Americans saying, we want the border to be secure. And by the way, it's not just people we're worried about. It's drugs. It's fentanyl. We're not in favor of this. And all they care about is making happy a small group of activists who honestly believe that we should abolish ICE and let anyone who wants to come in, come in. That's their position. That was their position. That remains their position. Another issue in which what everyday people care about is put aside in favor of what a small but powerful group want. And so on issue after issue, today's Democratic Party, I'm not talking about Democratic voters. I think what you're going to see tomorrow and what you're going to see across the country is a lot of people that have voted for Democrats, a lot of people who may still be registered for Democrats are not voting for these Democrats because that's not the Democratic Party they signed up for. And so on issue after issue, the Democratic Party basically makes their priority not you, but the interests of some small, powerful group and their radical demands. And they do it on issue after issue after issue, whether it's crime, whether it's immigration, on all of them. We are told, suck it up and pay $4 for gas because we need to make the people who signed that, Paris Climate Accord happy or whatever. I guess John Kerry happy. By the way, John Kerry, and I say this, I'm not into conspiracy, guys. I'm not a conspiracy person, okay? But I've never seen John Kerry and Charlie Crist together in the same room. They may be the same person. They might be. I'm just saying that. I think they look alike a little bit. A little bit. A little bit. They look a little bit alike. I can't prove it, so I'm not going to say it. I would never say it in front of the media, for example. All right. Okay. Either way, the point is that, so maybe make him happy. The same with crime. The same with immigration. They constantly pick the side of these small groups that are completely out of touch with reality, not just with you, with reality, and against the American people. So you know what happens when you do that? What happens when you do that is you lose elections, and you lose them by a lot. And that's what needs to happen tomorrow. They don't just have to lose this election. They have to lose this election by a lot. By a lot. They have to lose. Now I'm going to say something that not everybody agrees with, I suppose. As a partisan in a race, people may not agree with this. But I actually think it would be good for America to have two normal political parties. Now, maybe one is more to the right, one's more to the left, but they're not like one is to the right and one's insane. They're both normal. They both operate in the realm of reality. It would be good for our country. That's not what today's Democratic parties become. Again, not the voters. I'm not like Joe Biden. I'm not here to tell you that half the people in this country are dangerous, fascist, a threat to the republic. He spent, the better part of 6 months saying if you don't vote for the people he's telling you to vote for, you're voting against democracy. Think about that. If you vote the wrong way, you're voting against democracy. Like voting and democracy, it's like, and not only does he argue that, he says you're voting for people that are fascists. Listen, we're only a year and a half removed from a speech he gave in Georgia where he said that a Georgia law, if we didn't reverse it at the federal level, a law that said things like you can't collect 6,000 absentee ballots in the trunk of your car. A law that said you have to show ID before you go vote. Right? He went on to say that stuff was like segregation, that it was like Jim Crow 2.0. He actually said something, I'm still trying to figure it out. No one can explain it to me. He said that it was like Jim Eagle. It made Jim Crow look like Jim Eagle. Who's Jim Eagle? I know Ian Eagle used to be this guy on television that did like sports commentary or still does. I don't know what he's talking about. It must be code language for something. But the point is that we're only this is the radicalization of how they describe their fellow Americans that don't agree with them. So on issue after issue, they're against us. They should lose these elections, and they should lose by a lot. Because as I said, I do believe the only way we're going to have a chance to bring the Democratic Party back into the universe, as opposed to wherever it is they exist right now, according to their leadership, is with crushing defeats. that forced them to turn around and say, hey guys, I think that this open border stuff is not popular after all. That caused some of them to go around and say, hey guys, I think this stuff about not putting criminals in jail, I don't think people are for it. Or, hey guys, I think this stuff about $4 for gasoline and everyone, you better go ride the bus to work, I don't think that stuff's selling. And if that doesn't work, at least then maybe self-preservation kicks in, and some of these people running for Senate in 2024, or whoever the Democrats put up for president, will say, hey, I'd like to win this election. I'd like not to lose like we just lost 2 years ago. So maybe we should change our positions and start being for normal things that people care about. The bottom line is this. What this country deserves are two political parties, but at a minimum, at least one, that cares more about what hardworking, law-abiding, everyday people care about than what some, nutty professor or radical activist or laptop liberal or Marxist misfit cares about. We need to start putting the hardworking, tax-paying people in this country ahead of all these radical groups. And that's what this is about. Now, I hope that I'm in the majority in the Senate. Now, and the reason is threefold. Number one, let me tell you something. Our job, we have to remind people of this, okay? The Constitution did not want a powerful central government. It didn't. They specifically didn't want one. What they said is this: your rights come from God. The power is in your hands. We'll have a government because we're not anarchists. The majority of the government power will be in the states and whoever they delegate it to, school boards, local governments. And the federal government will have some powers very specifically delineated. And if it's not delineated in this list, the federal government doesn't have that power. But today, our federal government today looks nothing like that. And the problem we have is we've nationalized everything. And so now, no matter what the problem is, the question always is, what is Washington going to do about it? It doesn't mean we don't care about these issues. But sometimes the best thing Washington can do about these problems is allow the governments at the state and local levels to be the ones that confront and solve them. Not because we don't care, but because we do. So as an example, I think it has been wise to allow local governments and states to control our education. Because I promise you that if the federal government was in charge of our K-12 education system in this country, it would look a lot more like California's and a lot less like Florida's. And I think that's just a perfect example, but that's not what we have. We have a federal government now that says, yes, we'll send you money for school lunches, but it comes with these enormous strings attached. And the strings now are, if you don't allow boys to compete against girls, if you don't teach certain things, we're going to take away your school lunch money for your state. And so that Senate majority, one of the first things it has to do, I hope, is stop and reverse these things from continuing to happen that is eroding and disfiguring our constitutional order in this country. The second thing is we should try to pass some good things. And I think we have a chance to do that, and I'll tell you how. Because these things have overwhelming support. I don't have to do a poll to tell you the overwhelming majority of Americans would prefer to pay half what they pay right now for gasoline. You don't have to poll it, I promise you. It's true. How do you do that? You produce more American oil. Now, we can't produce it now because Joe Biden, of course, has those hecklers. So what he does is instead, oh, don't worry, we're not going to drill for oil. We'll have Saudi Arabia drill for oil. And maybe those hecklers are fine because maybe the hecklers think, well, at least we're not doing it. Saudi Arabian oil is cleaner than American oil. So what I've told, you may have heard this already because I've said it a few times. It was supposed to be a secret. Somehow it got out. So I'm going to tell you what our plan is. I think it could still work. We go ahead and produce American oil. But we print up a bunch of stickers that say made in Saudi Arabia, and we put it on the oil barrels. And Joe Biden gets confused and comes out all for it. I think that might work. Now, before I let it slip and started talking about doing it that way, I thought we had a 90% chance of success. Now that it's gotten out, I think it's down to like 75% chance of success. So that he would get confused and before. But we can make good things happen. And ultimately, look, if he wants to veto good ideas, then his party will have another crushing defeat in 2 years. But we need to do good things. And the third thing we need to do is oversight. I'm not talking about this fake kangaroo court, January 6th commission. By the way, no credibility, okay? A bunch of people on there, including election deniers, okay, like Jamie Raskin, election denier, other people, election deniers, having this committee January 6th, and then 2 anti-Trump Republicans. This committee hires a Hollywood producer to do this primetime spectacle. And I'm asking myself, why don't we have a commission instead on the riots of 2020, when they actually burned down hundreds of cities, torched police cars? And before she was the border czar, Kamala Harris, she's also vice president, she's the tiebreaker and border czar. Before she was the tie-breaking border czar, she was a senator from California, and she was raising money to bail people out. So think about it. This guy would go set a police car on fire, go to jail, if they even arrested him, bail him out so he can set another fire, maybe that same night, maybe the next day. We should have hearings on this. We should have hearings on, what is it, we're up to 51, 52 pro-life pregnancy centers firebombed in America. Where's the 5-part CNN series on violence in America, on that? Not a single person's been arrested. What about the guy that got on an airplane, flew from California to assassinate Kavanaugh? Not a death threat. He didn't do a death threat. He showed up outside his house, with zip ties, a knife, a gun, and he told them, what are you here to do? I'm here to help Kavanaugh. And after I'm done, maybe one other Supreme Court justice. Because I heard these people are evil. I heard these people and politicians talking about it that way. Where's the hearings on that? Where are the hearings? Where are the hearings on the FBI? The FBI should be arresting these people. The Justice Department should be focused on these people. Maybe instead of spending all this time, going after the My Pillow guy, they should be focused on that laptop that they found a couple years ago that belonged to the president's son. So the oversight has to happen. And here's what it is. If we're in the majority, it will not be because we re-elected a bunch of people that are going to be doing the same thing. It'll be, if we're in the majority, it'll be because we elected new senators with the fire in the belly, new senators from Arizona, from Nevada, from Ohio, from Pennsylvania, from Georgia, hopefully from New Hampshire, hopefully, even from Washington State and Colorado. That'll be what that majority is made up of, people that are there to make a difference. People that are there to make a difference and who understand what's at stake and haven't been, some of them haven't even held elected office before. And they're going to go up there and hopefully make a difference. And that's what we need to do, and that's what we owe you, because what's at stake here is the future of the greatest country in the history of the world. And we say that sometimes, we can never say that enough. Because we inherited the greatest nation in all of human history, a civilization and a society without parallel. Without parallel. There have been powerful countries throughout history. There have been countries that I could argue that militarily, from a relative point of view, in their era, were more powerful than us. And we're a powerful economy, there's no doubt about it. But what makes us unique and special is that for 2.5 centuries, this has been a place where every generation has left the next better off. What makes this place unique is our people. Being an American is not like it is in some other countries. Being an American is not a skin color. It's not an ethnicity. It's not the way your last name is pronounced. It's not where your parents were born. American can be anyone who comes here the right way or is born here and is committed to the idea that our rights, the rights of every human being, comes from our Creator, comes from God. And that those rights are delineated very clearly, what the 3 principal ones are. Life, because without life, none of the other rights can matter. If you're not alive, you have no rights, right? Liberty, and that is the ability to believe and speak freely, which today is being threatened constantly. Okay, we live in an era now in which anytime you disagree with someone on the left, they want to shut it down. Anywhere you go, from college campuses to social media, liberty, and to pursue happiness. And that's the one that's really important. Because happiness, you decide, happiness is what the things that make life worth living. And for some people, happiness is about making a lot of money. For other people, happiness is about starting a small business. For some people, happiness is about having a dignified job that provides for them. I can tell you what happiness was for my parents. Happiness for my parents was the ability to come to a country where they could find jobs that allowed them to make enough money to live in a safe neighborhood, own a home, working as a bartender and a maid, raise 4 children, leave all 4 of their children better off than themselves, and retire with dignity. That's how they defined happiness, to give us the chance to do the things they never could. That is the American dream. That is the real American dream. And that's what's under assault. And that's what's being threatened. Because today, people with those two jobs, if they're even in America, and we haven't sent the jobs to some other country like we've done for 30 years, another example of how we put the interests of others ahead of our own people. We have to be a country that makes things. We have to be a country that can actually do things in this country, not just buy it from someone else. But assuming those jobs are still here, those people are struggling with the cost of living. They're struggling to buy a home. They're struggling to buy a home in a safe neighborhood because the neighborhood may not be safe. And they're struggling to leave their kids better off than themselves. And they're worried and they're scared because they realize we might be the first generation that will not leave our children better off than ourselves. And if we stay on the road that we're on right now, a road that we've been on for far too long, a road that we were not on for a couple years, 3 or 4 years, when Donald Trump was in the White House, and then now we're back on in an accelerated rate, we need to get off this road. This is the wrong road. It is a road that will steal everything that makes us special and unique. If we do not get these people out of power, they will destroy the country. They will disfigure our history. And they will deny our children their inheritance of the greatest country in the history of the world, a better country than the one that was left to us. Now, the solutions to all these problems do not lie in Washington, D.C. And I would argue the solutions to all these problems do not lie in our government. It's important to always remember that the most important house in America is not the White House, it's your house. Because it's in your house, it's in your homes, it's in our communities, and it's in our families where children are raised and values are formed. And our job is to support the family and the home, not to try to replace it. But you do need a government that puts criminals in jail. You do need a government that secures our border against drugs and rampant illegal immigration. You do need a government that allows our country to fully utilize the energy we've been blessed with. The farms, not allow China to buy up all our farms so we can continue to feed our people. You do need a government that will continue to provide us and protect our liberties and our freedoms so we can speak freely and express ourselves and worship as we please. We still need a government that does all of these things. And so these elections matter and they're important because we have to send people up there that believe in this and because we have to send a message that we want off this road. We are not going back on this road. We will not allow them to destroy this country. And so if you haven't already voted, or you have to make sure you vote tomorrow. You can't vote Wednesday. You got to vote tomorrow. And if you've already voted, and I would imagine that most of you that are here probably already have, because if you come to I know. Generally what I find is that if you're at a rally in the afternoon on the day before the election, you might be a political junkie or at least care a little bit about politics, or you're a candidate. But we're grateful that you're here. But we all know people. We all know. Every single one of us knows someone that wants to vote, agrees with us, but isn't going to vote unless you remind them and get them there. And so what I ask you to do is if you know those people in your life, make sure they get there. Make sure they vote tomorrow. Don't believe any of the stuff you're reading in the press. The polls say this, the turnout says that. None of that matters. We want no surprises. We want no shocks. The only shock I want tomorrow is I can't believe Republicans won by that much on every race up and down the ticket. That's the only surprise we want. And that's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen in Florida. That's what's going to happen across this country if people turn out and vote. And if we do that, we are going to save our country. We're going to produce energy again. We're going to have factories and jobs in America again. We're going to secure our border again. We'll put criminals in jail again. Prosecutors will prosecute again. Things will be affordable again. We'll save the greatest country in the history of the world, and then our children will inherit what they deserve, the greatest country in the history of the world. Let's go win tomorrow. Let's win big. Thank you. God bless. Thank you.